Have you ever noticed that the highest paid remote jobs are often the most boring? To be honest, you probably haven't, as most people only talk about the flashy ways to make money online. However, they often ignore the ones that aren't considered cool. But the problem with cool remote jobs is that the competition is sky high, whereas the ones that aren't as popular are almost always hiring, because people don't even know they exist. You see, I made my millions in the radio control model industry, as well as investing in the stock market. Many people would consider that pretty boring. So I'm living proof that boring, and sometimes even nerdy jobs pay extremely well. That's why today, I'm going to be revealing my top 7 boring but high-paying remote jobs. Short Form Strategist. First up is a short form strategist. Believe it or not, if you're guilty of a late-night TikTok scroll, then you probably know more about short-form content than someone with a film degree. This job is all about spotting viral moments in long-form videos and then telling editors what to cut and what to keep in. Don't worry, this doesn't involve creating content yourself or being on camera. It's purely a strategic role. For each of these jobs, I'm going to be looking at their ranking in these 5 different categories, and then we're going to put them head-to-head to see what job comes out on top. If you haven't already guessed, I've decided these, like huge top trump cards that I used to like playing with when I was a kid. Let's start with the category you guys probably care about the most, earning power. Now, this is a hard one, because the better you get, the more you'll be able to earn. Indeed.com puts a salary range between $22,000 and $172,000. But that's because there are so many different things you can offer as a short-form strategist. So if you're just starting out, I think $48,000 is a very realistic estimate. Next, let's dig into the beginner score. This one is super easy to start, as you don't have to learn how to edit or film videos. Instead, you can just focus on coming up with the best hooks, learning video pacing, and cracking the code for viral videos. That's why in this category, it ranks a solid 9 out of 10. Next is growth potential. This is important when picking a job, as you want to know that there's the ability to earn more as you get better. If you want to earn closer to those higher figures that I mentioned earlier, then you'll need to take a more active role in planning out videos from scratch. You could also look into negotiating some kind of view-based bonus. So whenever a video goes viral, you also benefit financially. If you can prove your strategy works and gets good results for multiple clients, you'll be able to charge much more and hit much larger numbers. That's how you take it from $48,000 per year to $100,000 plus. For this reason, I've ranked this category as 8 out of 10. Now for a category I'm calling survivability. This is all about if the job will be around in the future. The last thing you want is for the job you pick to be replaced by AI in the next couple of years. Luckily, content strategy is something AI is incredibly bad at. That's why this gets a solid 8.5 out of 10. Finally, let's look at its freedom factor. Look, at the end of the day, clients don't care if you're in Texas or Thailand. They care about results. And as long as you perform, you can have the freedom to live and work anywhere. So it ranks 9.5 out of 10. As this job is the first one we've talked about, it's currently leading in all categories. But that won't be the case for much longer. Customer Service Coordinator. Job number 2 is a customer service coordinator. Have you ever been on a website and needed some help only to be directed to an AI bot and just frantically typed in talk to a human? Well, if you choose to become a customer service coordinator, then you'll become the human on the other end. Think of it like being a middleman between bots and customers. As far as earning power goes, Indeed.com puts this between $52,000 and $120,000 per year. However, it is dependent on where the companies you work for are based and what they're selling. So let's go with a more conservative estimate of $65,000. This one is pretty beginner-friendly because all you need is some great communication skills, a knack for problem solving, and a little bit of patience to understand the business you're working for. That's why it gets a solid 8 out of 10. As far as growth potential goes, there is room to move into higher-level support roles or even operations management. If you really understand customer behavior and business systems, you can become extremely valuable to companies. That's why this category ranks a 7 out of 10. Now let's talk survivability. While AI is handling basic queries, complex issues still require real humans. Businesses will always need someone to step in when automation fails. So for that reason, This gets a 7.5 out of 10. Finally, the freedom factor. Most customer service coordinator roles are fully remote, and as long as you're available during required hours, you can work from anywhere. That gives it an 8 out of 10. Data Annotator. Next up is Data Annotator. This is probably one of the most underrated remote jobs out there. A data annotator labels data so that AI systems can learn from it. This could involve tagging images, reviewing text, or categorizing information so machine learning models can improve. It might sound repetitive, but it's one of the foundational jobs powering the AI revolution. When it comes to earning power, this role typically ranges between $40,000 and $85,000 per year, depending on the company and experience level. For beginners, this is one of the easiest roles to get into because you don't need advanced technical skills. Attention to detail is the most important factor. That's why it scores a 9 out of 10 for beginner friendliness. Growth potential depends on whether you move into higher-level AI operations or project management. If you stay at entry level, income may plateau. So this category ranks as 6 out of 10. Now survivability. Ironically, even though you're working with AI, this job is relatively secure for now because AI still needs humans to train and refine it. So this gets an 8 out of 10. Freedom factor? Most data annotation jobs are fully remote and task-based, meaning you often have flexible hours. So it earns a 9 out of 10. Technical writer. Another boring but high-paying remote job is technical writer. Technical writers create manuals, documentation, and guides for software companies and tech products. It's not glamorous, but companies desperately need clear documentation. Earning power ranges from $60,000 to over $110,000 depending on expertise and industry. For beginners, it requires strong writing skills and the ability to understand technical concepts, so it scores a 7 out of 10. Growth potential is strong if you specialize in high-demand industries like cybersecurity or AI. That's why it ranks an 8 out of 10. Survivability is also high because clear human communication is difficult for AI to fully replace. So this gets an 8.5 out of 10. Freedom factor is high as well since most technical writing roles are remote. It scores a 9 out of 10. Operations Manager. Next is Operations Manager. This role focuses on improving systems, workflows, and efficiency within a company. It's not flashy, but it's incredibly valuable. Earning power can range from $70,000 to well over 6 figures, depending on company size. For beginners, this role is harder to break into, so it scores a 6 out of 10. Growth potential is extremely high because strong operators can move into executive positions, so it ranks a 9 out of 10. Survivability is also high since companies will always need human oversight for operations. That gives it an 8 out of 10. Freedom factor depends on the company, but many operations roles are now remote-friendly, so it earns a 7 out of 10. SEO Specialist. Another boring but powerful job is SEO Specialist. Search engine optimization involves helping websites rank higher on Google. It requires patience and analytical thinking, but it can pay extremely well. Earning power ranges from $50,000 to over $100,000 depending on skill level. For beginners, there's a learning curve, so it scores a 7 out of 10. Growth potential is strong because businesses will always want traffic. That's why it ranks an 8 out of 10. Survivability is decent, although AI tools are entering the space. So it gets a 7 out of 10. Freedom factor is high since SEO work is fully remote. It scores a 9 out of 10. So as you can see, the highest paying remote jobs aren't always the most exciting ones. In fact, the more boring a job sounds, the less competition it usually has. If you're willing to sacrifice a bit of excitement for stability, income, and freedom, these roles can completely change your life. And remember, boring doesn't mean low paying. Sometimes, boring is exactly where the money is.